Chapter 141 Sword Spirit Fruit arrives, exchanges between exalted masters. $24 million. $25 million. $26 million. $30 million. $37 million. Almost every Zuni couldn't help but participate in the bidding. Eventually, an exalted one had spent 98 million lower-grade yuan stones to buy this 12,000-year-old purple wood spirit ginseng. This is definitely a well-deserved high price. However, the venerable who bought the spiritual ginseng was smiling while the other venerables were looking regretful. Obviously, in their hearts, they all thought that it was worth it to be able to buy the purple wood spirit ginseng. With the warm-up of the purple wood spirit ginseng, the atmosphere of the auction gradually rose next. Over time, one by one, the auction items appeared one after another. There were precious spiritual herbs and fruits, rare treasures and curiosities, and even silver-level martial arts. The appearance of each treasure triggered a sensation in the room, and was competed for by many. 8 desolate exalted. Half an hour later, a new lot was brought up. Venerable lords, the next item to appear is an extremely special treasure, called the Blade Spirit Fruit. If a martial artist is able to swallow it, it will cause a small increase in the martial artist's talent for blade cultivation. Of course, considering that the increase in the Blade Spirit Fruit is too small, therefore this bidding will have a total of 13 pieces. How important is the significance of being able to enhance the talent of sword cultivation? I'm sure I don't need to say more. All of you venerable lords should be able to understand that, so I won't go into details. The starting price is 100 million yuan stones, each increase shall not be less than 5 million. Having said that, the auctioneer then lifted the red cloth on the tray, revealing 13 dragon's eye-sized spirit fruits with a light blue color. Knife spirit fruit. Upon seeing this spirit fruit, half of the Zunis on the scene revealed a flash of interest. Although of all the Zunis present, there were very few who possessed a talent for sword techniques, and there weren't many Zunis who practiced sword-type martial arts. But the blade cultivation talent was an extremely rare and special talent, and it was also very powerful. They can't use it, but it's perfectly fine for them to film it and use it for their future generations of children and grandchildren to increase their talent. $150 million. A Zuni has started to make an offer. $110 million. $120 million. $125 million. $140 million. One after another, Zunis began to make offers, and the prices climbed by leaps and bounds. As for Trummer, although he was extremely eager for these dozen or so blade spirit fruits in his heart, he did not start shouting at this time, but waited patiently. Because it was still in the midst of a bidding frenzy, almost every Zuni wanted to fight for it. When the price gradually came up and there were fewer people vying for it, that's when he made his move. Fruity. Moments later, the price had climbed to 420 million. By this point, there were only a few Zunis left in the hall who were still participating in the bidding. Those venerable masters who had given up, the original intention of the bidding was merely to buy it for their descendants to use, in case if they were able to enhance their descendants' sword talent, then they would have made a profit. But with the price having crossed $400 million, it's a bit of a no-brainer. After all, the magnitude of enhancement per blade spirit fruit is too small. Even with 13 of them, it's hard to move up a level. And that's the same thing that hit the fan. Even if all of them, the exalted ones, were rich in price, it was impossible for them to turn a blind eye to all 400 million yuan of stones. The few Zunis who were still bidding either possessed a talent for sword techniques or had practiced sword martial arts, wanting to take this opportunity to increase their strength. Another few moments passed. As another exalted one gave up the bidding, only 2 exalted ones remained on the field still grabbing for it. $530 million. A rough-looking venerable spoke. The words came out. Another venerable's face showed hesitation, obviously weighing up whether to continue to follow it or not. See this scene. The rough-looking venerable immediately let out a sigh of relief. He knows. If nothing else, these blade spirit fruits should have arrived by themselves. Just as the thought had come into his mind. 800 million. A calm voice suddenly sounded in the hall. When this voice rang out, almost everyone subconsciously bent their gazes over. Greeting the crowd. Chumo's face was calm as he slowly said, "I'll offer 800 million. The words were flat, but carried a determination that had to be taken. Words. That venerable who was still hesitant directly let out a breath and chose to give up. The rough-looking venerable was even more so as his face instantly changed, looking unsightly. Thought it was a handful. But who knows? But suddenly someone kills out halfway, and directly shouts out such a high price. This caused some hesitation in his mind for a moment, not knowing whether to follow him down or not. $800 million stone he can get. Just. Most of the yuan stones he brought this time, most of them are going to be reserved for bidding for that one gold-level martial arts skill, if at this moment, he additionally spends so many yuan stones to buy the knife spirit fruitus really a little too much. More importantly, he looked at Chumo's calm face and feared that he was determined to win the blade spirit fruit. This also meant that he was afraid that the yuan stones he would end up paying would be far more than 800 million. After carefully deliberating for a moment, this venerable man still helplessly chose to give up. Congratulations, Venerable Chu, for successfully bidding on the 13 blade spirit fruits at a price of 800 million yuan stones. With the auctioneer's hammer. This also meant that the blade spirit fruit became Chumo's possession. A breath of nearly 300 million yuan stones up, buying the blade spirit fruit for 800 million, is he crazy? That's rich. But the blade spirit fruit increases blade talent too little, I'm afraid he's going to blow it by buying it. A few Zunis couldn't help but murmur as they listened to such a price. $800 million in stones is not a lot for them. But to use it to purchase the blade spirit fruit was a bit of a loser. Ignoring these comments around him, at this moment, although Chumo's face was bland, his heart quietly let out a sigh of relief. The fruit of the sword and spirit arrives. He had then achieved the purpose of the trip. So the next thing Chumo did was close his eyes and traveled out of the sky, quietly waiting for the auction to end. Next. Again, there were countless treasures appearing one after another. Each of them fetched hundreds of millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars. For ordinary martial artists, they would never be able to earn so many yuan stones in their exhaustive lives, but here, it was just a number shouted from the mouths of honored ones soon. The auction had then come to an end. As the treasure of the Grand Axis, the gold-level martial skill was also finally unveiled and appeared in front of everyone present. It is a powerful palm technique and its strength. Moreover, if a martial artist with an earth attribute talent cultivated it, there was a certain increase. The moment this martial art appeared, it immediately ignited the atmosphere of the entire room. All the Zunis almost had a flash of excitement in their eyes, wanting to scramble it down. Starting bid, 1.5 billion. The auctioneer's voice was trembling as he shouted out the number. The starting price had already reached 1.5 billion yuan stones. Without a doubt, this was an extremely exaggerated figure. However, the moment her voice fell, almost all of the Zunis shouted out their prices. I'll give you 1.5 billion. 1.8 billion. 2 billion. I'll offer 3 billion, I'll take this martial art. $3 billion, and you want to take a gold-level martial art? That's really delusional. I'll offer 4 billion. Prices are climbing. Soon it had surpassed $10 billion. But this is far from the end. What followed was another fierce battle. Eventually, this gold-grade martial art was auctioned off at a price of $26.3 billion by an 8 desolate venerable from the Ruyan Great Base. To this point, the auction came to a complete close. Chumo also smoothly got his own blade spirit fruit after paying the money, and then put it into his carry-on space at the first opportunity. And at the moment, In the middle of the hall, the exalted one who had bought the gold-level martial skill also had a look of ecstasy on his face after getting the goods. As for the other exalted ones, they had expressions of regret. The only reason they didn't continue to compete was because the yuan stones they carried were not enough. Otherwise, the fight is bound to continue. A gold-level martial skill was something that could be encountered but not sought, and even if one paid a great price, one had to get their hands on it. And who knew that today they had flatly missed out due to insufficient preparation of yuan stones, making them feel remorseful for a while, and their faces were even more unsightly. Thank you all for bearing with me, thank you, thank you, thank you. Right at this moment, the venerable of the Ruyan Great Bay stood up and said with a smile to all the venerables in the room, "This object was luckily obtained by me. It all relies on all of you to hold up your hands. The next venerable exchange, I will also take out some treasures, and if all of you have an eye on it, I'll be cheaper than one or two at my discretion." Once these words were spoken, the faces of the other exalted ones eased slightly. The next step was the free trade between the honored ones. Exalted level transactions were not done in public, but in private. Each venerable would hang out the items they needed, as well as the treasures they could take out for trade, and if another venerable took a fancy to it, the two would be led by the Jade Merchant Alliance to have a private chat to determine the price. These processes were already very well understood by the other Zunis, so they all quickly put up information about the treasures they needed and were selling. As for Trummer, after thinking about it, he filled in the required treasures. Acquire all treasures that increase the talent of the sword attribute. As for the treasures that could be taken out and exchanged, he took out all those spirit weapons that he had previously acquired, such as the Xuanwu shield and the flying needles. There were also some precious heavenly materials and treasures hung up. After doing all this, Chu Mo stayed in a box and waited quietly. It didn't take long. Trummer then heard a knock on the door. Immediately, he saw a servant girl from the Jade Merchant Alliance leading an honored one in. "Venerable Chu, I have a treasure on me that can increase the talent of the blade attribute. I wonder if I can bring it in exchange for your set of 5th rank flying needle spirit weapons." This venerable one was a middle-aged beautiful woman who opened the door as soon as she came inwards. Chummer said, "Yes, but I need to see it before I can decide." "Just as it should be." The middle-aged beauty nodded, and then she sat down in the box, while taking out a jade box from her storage bag and placing it on the table. Chapter 142 Heavenly Star Blade Bamboo, Enlightenment Stone Tablet containing spatial laws. This is. Chu Mo revealed a puzzled look. This is the yuan liquid produced by the Heavenly Star Blade Bamboo, growing in the place where the blade chi is thick. Every 100 years can grow a section. The bamboo section contains a trace of the spiritual liquid transformed by the blade intent. If the martial artist refines it, it can slightly enhance the talent of the blade. You can open it to take a look at it. The beautiful venerable woman said softly. Hearing this, Chu Mo then reached out and opened the jade box. Immediately, he saw a jade bottle lying quietly inside, which was filled with a shallow layer of milky white liquid. Uncork the bottle. At once, a wave of purity came over him. Chu Mo immediately felt that the 365 blade orifices up and down the circumference of his body were all trembling in unison, showing their desire for the yuan liquid. This longing was even more intense than the longing for the blade spirit fruit. No doubt about it. It was bound to be a precious heavenly treasure. Well? The beautiful venerable woman asked with a smile. Not bad stuff. It does increase the talent of the blade, only the quantity is too small, only a shallow layer. It's impossible to exchange it for a spirit soldier. Chummer said. I also know that it's impossible to exchange this for a spirit soldier, so this is just a deposit. The beautiful venerable woman said, in reality, the real item I want to exchange for the spirit soldier is the information about the place where the Heavenly Star Blade bamboo grows. I think that this information, together with the yuan liquid of these Heavenly Star Blade bamboo, should be enough for the exchange, right? You know a place where the astral blade bamboo grows? A flash of essence flashed in Chu Mo's eyes, then he frowned and said, such a place is bound to be a treasure. Since you know it, why don't you go and fetch it yourself? But instead, you have to sell it as intelligence. isn't this putting the cart before the horse? It's not because of lack of strength. The beautiful woman Venerable said somewhat helplessly, that place is the treasure land that I unintentionally discovered, in which there is a large area of heavenly star blade bamboo growing, but unfortunately it is guarded by a very strong ferocious beast, and with my strength it is simply not possible to fight against it. This little bit in front of me is still the ferocious beast that I took advantage of to secretly collected it while it was sleeping. Even so, I almost startled that ferocious beast to the point that I couldn't come back alive. As she said this, a heartfelt look appeared in her eyes. Since that ferocious beast is so powerful that even you can't fight against it, I'm afraid that there are hardly many Zunis from these large bases who can fight against it, so the value of this information of yours is greatly diminished. After all, there is simply no one who can get the heavenly star blade bamboo under the guardianship of that ferocious beast. So, with all this now alone, you still can't exchange it for this spirit soldier. Trummer shook his head and said. This beautiful venerable woman was at about the same realm as the Sioux clan's oldest ancestor. As a result, even she almost died under that ferocious beast, which meant that the strength of that ferocious beast should be extremely strong. Even if an ordinary exalted one knew the exact location, it would be difficult to get their hands on it. And what would it take for you to be willing to trade? The beautiful venerable woman obviously knew this reason as well, so she said somewhat helplessly, hear this. Chu Mo glanced at the other party and said, you should still have some of the yuan liquid of the heavenly star blade bamboo on your body, right? All of it, plus this information, before you can exchange it. This. She was a little hesitant. Only. Thinking of that flying needle spirit soldier, he finally clenched his teeth and said, yes. Having said that, she then took out a copy of the jade bottle from her body once again. The heavenly star blade bamboo yuan liquid contained inside was almost half a bottle. Only after seeing this scene did Chu Mo nod his head in satisfaction. Then he took out the flying needle spirit weapon from within his carry space and handed it to the other party. And after the beautiful woman checked that there was no problem with the flying needles, a flash of excitement appeared on her face. Now can you tell me about that location? Chummer said. Good. The beautiful venerable woman nodded and then told Chu Mo where the heavenly star blade bamboo grew. To this point, the deal between the two is done. The beautiful venerable woman was very happy to take the flying needles and leave. For her. However, she had only taken out a portion of the heavenly star blade bamboo yuan liquid that she could not use at all, plus a treasure land that she could not even explore, and exchanged it for the 5th grade spirit soldier that she needed the most. This deal is well worth it. And as far as Chummer was concerned, he was satisfied. The yuan liquid of these heavenly star blade bamboo on hand was secondary, the key was learning where the heavenly star blade bamboo grew. Although the guardian ferocious beast there was very powerful, Chu Mo might not be unable to kill it really can't. It was entirely possible to cultivate for a while longer, allowing him to further his cultivation. How is it all earned? When the exchange is over, we'll go over and take a look. Chumo thought darkly. Subsequently, he stowed the heavenly star blade bamboo yuan liquid inside his carry-on space, and then walked out of the box, intending to see if the other Zunis had any good treasures. What you see along the way. It was seen that all of the treasures that these exalted ones had hung out were indeed very precious, and the treasures that they needed were all varied. Looking at it, Chu Mo suddenly let out a light eep, a flash of surprise appearing on his face. Gaze. It also betook itself to a hall not far away. At this moment, there were several exalted masters there, and a faint spatial fluctuation was faintly coming from them. This, Murphy. He seemed to have thought of something, and his face immediately showed a flash of excitement before he quickly walked over Venerable Song Yuan, a small stone. You actually want so many treasures in exchange, are you crazy? Exactly. It's just an unknown broken stone, and you're treating him like a treasure. Venerable Song Yuan, you couldn't be thinking of relying on this stone to regain some blood because you bought a gold-level martial skill to the point that you're now short of money on your body, right? That's so unkind. Listening to the mockery of the several venerables with a glance from you to me, this venerable named Song Yuan couldn't help but have a sardonic smile on his face. The stone they were talking about was actually a large stone he had gotten in some secret realm. At first, Song Yuan also thought that it was some kind of treasure, so he brought it back with preciousness. But afterward he scrutinized it, but could not study anything. The only unusual thing about it is the hardness. No matter what he used, he couldn't cause half the damage to the stone, so over time, it was also put in a storage bag to eat dust. And this time, in order to buy this gold-grade martial skill, he had almost emptied his family's fortune, so he took out some heavenly treasures that he couldn't use and prepared to exchange them for some of the resources he needed. It includes this stone that you can't use yourself. Sure. He had laid it out, but was upset that he hadn't researched anything, so he laid it out at a high price. Either exchange it for $10 billion in stones. Either that or they will be exchanged for 5 spirit soldiers. In that case. In case the stone was really some sort of unimaginable treasure, he had tens of billions of yuan stones worth of compensation, which wasn't too bad. Therefore, at this moment, listening to these several venerable masters verbally executing the interest divided by pavilion, although venerable master Song Yuan also felt a bit weak, he still had the cheek to say, although I haven't researched the usefulness of this stone, it's because of my lack of eyesight, perhaps other venerable masters will be able to see the greatness of it. Besides, if it's not a treasure, then why is it so hard? Even my full force strike couldn't break it, which means that his origin is definitely not small. Maybe it's a stone tablet of enlightenment. A venerable heard this and scoffed, if it's really a martial Dao stone tablet, I'll eat him. As they speak, Chummer had also walked over. The only thing I saw was that the stone was about 1 meter square, dark in color, and looked flat, just like an ordinary stone. But Chu Mo was able to feel that as he gradually got closer, the fluctuations coming from his own spatial perception ability were getting stronger and stronger. This seems to be a stone that contains the power of space. No. Thesis: an enlightenment stone tablet that contains the laws of space. Chumo's heart set off waves of shock. It must be brought to hand. He thought so in his mind. Just then, all the other exalted ones had left one after another. Seeing that they were not interested, Song Yuan was a bit disappointed at the moment. And that's when I heard Chu Mo speak, this stone interests me. When Song Yuan heard this, he immediately brightened up and said enthusiastically, I knew there must be someone with a discerning eye. Venerable Chu, if you want it, as long as you pay 10 billion yuan stones, I can bear to give it up. Too expensive. Chu Mo shook his head and said, it's just a useless stone, I just want to buy it to study it because I'm curious, but if I need to talk tens of billions of yuan stones to buy it, then I won't buy it. Venerable Chu's words are wrong, it's a treasure, not even a venerable's full force strike could break it, the origin is definitely not ordinary. Song Yuan said, but after all it is of no use, even if it is hard? Chummer said. As soon as these words came out, Song Yuan immediately stumbled over his language. Chummer was right. Although anyone knew that this stone was unusual, a treasure with no use was worse than scrap metal. But know it in your heart. Song Yuan could never show it on his face. Tell you what, 8 billion yuan stones, just 8 billion yuan stones, I'll let you have it. Song Yuan feigned an appearance of enduring the pain and opened his mouth. Chu Mo said, I can only offer $2 billion in stones. This can't be right. Such a price is too low. Song Yuan immediately refused. $3 billion in stones. Chu Mo said, this is my bottom line, if you don't sell, then I'll leave. Hearing this, Venerable Song Yuan's heart was a bit torn. In his heart, he was actually extremely reluctant to part with this stone, but since the stone came into his hands, so far it had been more than 20 years, he still hadn't researched any anomalies, and it was almost like a piece of broken stone. Instead of continuing to keep it in your hands, sell it to get a little blood back. Just as well. 3 billion is 3 billion, I agree. Venerable Song Yuan clenched his teeth and said in a deep voice. Upon hearing these words, Chu Mo's heart was immediately delighted. However, he remained motionless on his face. From within his accompanying space, he took out a yuan stone worth $3 billion and handed it to Venerable Song Yuan, while Song Yuan handed the stone to Chu Mo. After confirming that there was no mistake, the two struck a deal. Got it. The moment the stone completely fell into his hands, Chu Mo could no longer hold back the joy in his heart, and a smile appeared on his face. And Venerable Song Yuan, the moment he handed over the stone, the heart suddenly sank. It was as if some kind of extremely important treasure had been lost to him, causing his mood to instantly lose its way. Chapter 143, Mastering the Spatial Upanishad, Blade Skill Talent Metamorphosis. Can't it be that was really a treasure, only I didn't see it? Venerable Song Yuan looked at the smile on Chu Mo's face, and suddenly his heart snapped. A strong feeling of remorse came over him. So much so that in this instant, he was almost about to take off trying to take the stone back from Chu Mo's hands. Good on. He still had a shred of sanity left. Therefore, at the last minute, he stopped himself hard from this idea. And let's not talk about whether or not he could beat Chu Mo. Even if the stone did come back, would he be able to study it? Just. Heavenly treasures are for the virtuous. This stone in my hands for 20 years did not show the divine. If it really works in the hands of others, it is only that I am not blessed to enjoy it. Think about it. Venerable Song Yuan shook his head and let out a long breath. The exalted level trade fair lasted for 3 days, but Chu Mo had already obtained the treasures he wanted, so he didn't stay here and directly returned to the villa. In the middle of the quiet room, Chu Mo took out this dark stone and placed it in front of him. Although he could be certain that this should be a martial arts monument, when his palm touched it, he realized that the spatial fluctuations that were fed back to him were small and seemed to be submerged. Chu Mo frowned and pondered for a moment, then suddenly stretched out his palm, gathered a spatial force, and landed on the stone. Boom! When this spatial force fell, it seemed to have poured a pot of water into a boiling frying pan, immediately causing a shocking chain reaction. Infinite spatial mysteries escaped from the stone, causing the entire house to be instantly filled with spatial power. The void was vaguely distorted by it. Sure enough, it's an enlightenment stone tablet of the spatial laws. A flash of brightness appeared in Chu Mo's eyes. Back then, he had encountered a stone tablet of enlightenment that contained saber intent, thus raising himself from a wisp of saber intent to a minor achievement of 30% saber intent, condensing the saber orifices around his body, causing his strength to increase greatly today. How much gain could a stone tablet of enlightenment containing the laws of space bring? Begin to enlighten. Read this. Chu Mo stretched out his palm and slowly placed it on the stone tablet of enlightenment. The moment his palm landed on the stone tablet, above the stone tablet, a dense luster suddenly emerged. It was like a ripple in the water. Immediately afterward, a mysterious and extreme aura flowed, rising up a ball of Rui Qi and luxurious light that enveloped Chu Mo's body. In an instant, Chu Mo only felt a flash before his eyes. When he turned around again, he realized that he was already in an unfamiliar world. This is the world that belongs to space. Infinite spatial mysteries poured towards his mind as far as the eye could see. There were pitch-black spatial cracks everywhere, and the rampant and whistling spatial turbulence was born and died endlessly. Horror permeates every corner of the world. Who suck? Who suck? These majestic spatial mysteries and spatial turbulence, as if they possessed a breath in general, accompanied by a unique rhythm of a retraction and release, between the retraction and release of endless spatial mysteries as if they were streams flowing toward Chu Mo's mind and soul, to instill. Soon. Chu Mo was then already oblivious, completely immersed in it, hungrily drawing on the essence of the spatial Upanishad. Time flows, and little by little it passes. His comprehension of the power of space was also increasing with each passing day. 3 days later, a strange fluctuation suddenly surged out of Chu Mo's body, and then it was seen that the void around him even distorted with it, making it seem as if he was thousands of miles away even though he was clearly still in the same place. I don't know how long it took before these spatial fluctuations gradually settled down and disappeared. The stone tablet of enlightenment, it really lives up to its name. It actually allowed me to directly comprehend a strand of spatial mysteries. Chumo opened his eyes and murmured. Just as a sword has a blade, a sword has a sword. Spatial talent, after comprehending it to a certain stage, one would grasp a trace of the essence of space, which was called Upanishad. The distinctions between the eons were also similar to those of the blade intent realm in general. There are divisions of 1 strand, 1 point, 1% and even 10%. Nowadays, even though Chumo had only mastered a single strand of spatial mysteries, if it were to be circulated, it would definitely shock countless people. Because whether or not one could comprehend the Upanishads represented whether or not that martial artist was qualified to enter the cave Heavenly King realm. The reason why martial artists of the cave Heavenly King realm are called Heaven and Earth Sealed Kings is because when they master a gifted axiom, even if it's only a strand, they can be recognized by Heaven and Earth, thus becoming a winter powerhouse, a king sealed powerful. If you cannot comprehend the mysteries, you will never be able to step into the cave Heavenly King realm in this life. Since the great change of heaven and earth, I don't know how many martial artists had been trapped in the 8 desolate exalted realm, unable to advance further because they couldn't comprehend the mysteries. The reason why? It was because in order to comprehend the Upanishads, the prerequisite had to be a high attribute talent. The higher the attribute talent, the greater the chance of being able to comprehend the relevant Upanishad. For low-grade attribute talents, although there were chances of comprehending them, the chances were too slim, and if they were not assisted by chance, they were almost minuscule. Not to mention, with such a low-grade attribute talent, if there was no high-grade physique to add to the speed of cultivation, I'm afraid that there was no chance of cultivating to the point of being able to comprehend the Upanishads. Also, even with a high level of talent, there was only a certain chance that one could master the Aeon. In a nutshell, it was extremely difficult to comprehend the Upanishads. Even if it was even an 8 desolate exalted who possessed a transcendent level attribute talent, if he was unlucky in his enlightenment, he would not be able to grasp the Upanishads for the rest of his life, and thus he would always remain in this realm, with no room for advancement. And now I have mastered a strand of spatial Upanishad. This means that there will be no more obstacles for me to step into the realm of the sealed king. Read this. Chumo's eyes suddenly revealed a radiant brightness. At this point, he realized that there were still some spatial fluctuations remaining in the stone tablet, so he once again plunged into enlightenment, striving to make the spatial mysteries he had mastered even more profound. So down. Another 10 days passed. Chumo had successfully raised his spatial Upanishad to the 7-point level, and was less than 3 points away from mastering the 10% Upanishad. But he could no longer continue his enlightenment. This was because all of the spatial power on the stone tablet of enlightenment had already been absorbed by him. Ka-ching. Accompanied by a crisp sound, the enlightenment stone tablet shattered with a loud bang. Seeing this scene, Chumo could only shake his head regretfully. Even though it's only 7 points of spatial Upanishad, it still made the spatial power I've grasped greatly improved. If I were to forcefully cultivate on, with my current spatial talent that is only advanced, it would take me at least 3 years to realize 10% of the Upanishads. It's not worth it at all. Chumo gave up on continuing his enlightenment. The degree of mastery of AoE depends on the upper limit of talent. The stronger the talent, the higher the upper limit of what can be mastered by the AoE. This was like Chumo's advanced sword talent. Although it could support him in comprehending a strand of saber intent, if there were no other chances, by virtue of Chumo comprehending it on his own, he could only cultivate up to a single point of saber intent, which was already the limit. But if his sword cultivation talent reached the top or even transcendent level, it was then possible to comprehend the blade intent to 10%. Unless one possessed some other chance, it would be impossible to go beyond the boundary of 10% blade intent in one's life. First, I'll raise my sword cultivation talent. Chummer decided. Taking out a blade spirit fruit from within his carry-on space, he directly ate it in one bite. At once. Chumo then felt all the blade chi in his body start to riot. In the meantime, a tingling sensation traveled from all over his body, giving his sword cultivation talent a slight boost. It really works. But the boost is too faint. Chumo thought darkly. He then proceeded to eat a blade spirit fruit. 2 hours later, Chumo swallowed all of the blade spirit fruits. He could clearly feel that his sword cultivation talent had been increased to a certain extent. It just still hasn't gotten a metamorphosis. At this rate of progress, I'm afraid that I'll need to swallow at least 30 more blade spirit fruits before I can raise my talent by 1 realm. Trummer took stock. He then took out the Heavenly Star Blade Bamboo Yuan liquid that he had obtained from the hands of the beautiful venerable woman from within his carry-on space. Try this, you might be able to get a boost. Chumo opened the jade bottle, and a wave of pure breath immediately hit his face. The blade technique talents within his body were all trembling slightly, as if they were longing for something. Gulp. Chumo drank all of the Heavenly Star Blade Bamboo Yuan liquid in one gulp, and his mouth was immediately filled with a clear fragrance, and this Yuan liquid was then transformed into a stream of pure mysterious energy that escaped into his limbs and bones, nourishing his physical body and cells. Look within the whole body. Chumo could feel that the cells and genes in his entire body were constantly reorganizing and metabolizing. It made him instantly flinch. This. Murphy's. Trummer froze for a moment. Some anticipatory waiting ensued. Half an hour later, the effect of the Yuan liquid completely disappeared. The first thing Chumo did was to check up on his personal information. Target, Chumhum. Physique, Transcendental Undying Thunder Body. Talents, Transcendent Level Fire Attribute Talent, Transcendent Level Earth Attribute Talent, Top Blade Cultivation Talent, Top Wind Attribute Talent, High Spatial Talent, High Wood Attribute Talent, High Water Attribute Talent, High Dark Attribute Talent, Medium Metallic Talent. Looking at the blade cultivation talent that had become top-notch, Chumo finally couldn't help but get excited. Finally, his sword talent had finally risen to the top. Although the top blade cultivation talent does not allow his strength to get a heaven and earth change, this is enough to show that the effect of the Heavenly Star Blade Bamboo Yuan liquid is very strong. According to what the middle-aged beauty said, that astral blade bamboo was very large. If he could kill the guardian ferocious beast there, he would be able to obtain a large amount of astral blade bamboo Yuan liquid. It might be possible to raise his sword cultivation talent to the transcendent level, or even the realm above transcendent. So much for that. He could then continue to raise his blade intent. Eventually, he realized that he had reached the point where he had perfected 10% of his sword intent. But that beautiful venerable woman is already in the middle stage of venerable strength, yet she still almost fell under the attack of the guardian ferocious beast, indicating that the ferocious beast's strength is extremely strong. Going over there with his current strength was indeed a bit risky. However, once he thought of being able to raise his blade technique cultivation talent to the transcendent level, Chumo thought that the risk was still worth taking. What's more, he had also grasped 7 points of spatial Upanishad, and his mastery of the power of space was on a higher level. If it just doesn't work, the big deal is that you can return it. Thinking so, Chumo instantly made up his mind, must go over and try. Chapter 144, Purple Bamboo Forest Sea, Level 7 Bloodthirsty Mad Crocodile. The Sea of Purple Bamboo. This was where venerable American woman discovered the celestial star blade bamboo. Before the great change in heaven and earth, originally only a city outskirts of artificial transplantation of a piece of bamboo forest, and then the great change in heaven and earth, I do not know why, this bamboo forest also got a great chance, but also crazy expansion, so that the last surprisingly became a piece of a huge bamboo forest that stretches for tens of thousands of miles. The Sea of Purple Bamboo Forest was 200,000 miles away from the Great Base of Jinling. Because it was too far away, Chumo was not familiar with the terrain of this place and did not know how to get there. Nowadays, the heavens and earth had changed drastically, and the wilderness was infested with many powerful ferocious beasts everywhere, so if one did not have a precise map, one could easily be in danger. Although with Chumo's strength nowadays, as long as he didn't actively provoke them, it was almost difficult to encounter a powerful ferocious beast. But after all, it was such a long distance away, so I'm afraid it would take quite a bit of time if he accidentally took the wrong road. So, Chumo then planned to go to the Jade Merchant Alliance to purchase a map. The headquarters of the Jade Commercial Union. Venerable Chu, may I ask what your orders are? When a female sales clerk saw Chumo, she immediately greeted him and said in a respectful manner, I'd like to buy a map that shows the route from the large base in Jinling to the Sea of Purple Bamboo Forests. Chummer said. The shopgirl immediately went to order her maid to go and look for them, and soon, she came over with a few scrolls. Venerable Chu, there are a total of 3 types of maps to the Sea of Violet Bamboo Forests, which require 500,000 yuan stones, 5 million yuan stones, and 100 million yuan stones. May I ask which one you need? Trummer asked, what's the difference between all of them? The map of the 500,000 grade only records the general terrain and route orientation. The 5 million yuan stone records the details of the journey from the Jinling Great Base to the Sea of Purple Bamboo Forests, including the gathering points of ferocious beasts that may be encountered along the way, as well as the various terrains. As for the last 100 million yuan stone, it contains the coordinates of 5 large bases in the vicinity, including the large base in Jinling, as well as more than 40 medium and small bases, plus the terrain and roadmap in the middle, and those ferocious beasts that may appear. Their weaknesses are also labeled. The shopgirl said respectfully. Give me a map worth $100 million in stones. Chumo said without hesitation. With his current fortune, yuanshi was already almost considered a figure of speech for him, and being able to use yuanshi to buy the most detailed information, thus allowing him to have a grasp of so many nearby areas, could be said to be very cost-effective. Venerable Chu, you are a guest secretary of the Merchant Alliance and enjoy a 20% discount, so you only need to pay 80 million yuan stones. In addition, the Merchant Alliance is also giving you a copy of the Recovery Yuan liquid. The female shopkeeper took out the map and spoke. Chumo took out $80 million and got the map as well as the attached Recovery Yuan liquid, and then left directly back to the villa. I had intended to speak to Qin Shiwei, but who knew that I would see that she was also packing up her own storage bag. Upon seeing Chumo, she immediately smiled and said, Husband, you're back. Shivi, you are? Chumhum asked suspiciously. I was planning to tell you that my strength has been growing too fast lately, and I feel that my realm is a bit unstable, so I was planning to go out for some training. Chen Shiwei explained. Hearing these words, Chumo then noticed that she had actually risen to the mid-sect master realm. At that moment, he couldn't help but feel some emotion in his heart. Have to say, after Qin Shiwei forged a flawless Dao foundation, her talent was completely revealed. The progress of cultivation was comparable to 1,000 miles a day. How long had it been since she had stepped into the Zhongshu? Her cultivation had grown so fast, even compared to Chumo. It was somewhat no better. Returning to his senses, Chumo said, Then you have to take care of yourself. In addition, I'll have Tianpeng follow you, so that you can take care of yourself on the road. Good. Chen Xing nodded slightly. Then seeing Chumo, who also seemed to be looking like he was going out, he couldn't help but ask, Are you going out as well, husband? Nice. Chumo then said that he was planning to explore some of the Purple Bamboo Forest Sea. After learning that there was a powerful ferocious beast there, Chen Shi was slightly worried. It's too dangerous there. Why don't you take Tianpeng with you? I won't be in any danger alone. No need, I still have Little Crow by my side. It's even stronger than the Sky Rock, it won't make any mistakes. Chummer shook his head. Hearing this, Chen Shiwei didn't insist anymore. She had indeed also seen Little Crow and knew that Little Crow was a 3-legged golden crow with terrifying strength. Even the Heavenly Rock, which had now been promoted to a Class 5 superior ferocious beast, was very afraid. In front of it the two made some more small talk and had lunch before leaving together. Only after they had exited the large base in Jinling did they part ways. Fresh. The golden-winged rock rocked up and carried the cool Chen Shui away. Chu Mo stood in place, his gaze watching their figures until they gradually disappeared from sight, and only then did he withdraw his gaze. Depart. A distance of 200,000 miles could definitely be considered far. However, it was fortunate that Chu Mo's realm was now at the four directions in general and he could fly in the air, thus saving a lot of time. However, he couldn't fly at full speed either, but instead only kept his speed at 20 times the speed of sound. In that case. In case of any mishap, you can also react quickly after all. There were also ferocious beasts in the sky, and if one suddenly encountered a powerful flying bird, but ended up directly crashing into it because one was unable to change direction as a result of flying with all one's might, that would be bad. No words on the way. 10 hours later. Chu Mo then heralded the steep appearance of a large sea of bamboo in front of him, which could not be seen at a glance. When the wind blows, countless bamboos flutter. Emerald green bamboo leaves are like the waves of the sea, like layers and layers and layers of waves. A glance at the heart of the shock. This is the sea of purple bamboo forest. Chu Mo dropped his figure and arrived in the middle of the bamboo forest. According to the intelligence, the heavenly star blade bamboo was in the deepest part of the bamboo forest, and the powerful ferocious beast was nearby. Therefore, Chu Mo collected his breath, dispersed his spiritual power and spatial perception ability, and walked vigilantly towards the depths of the bamboo sea. An hour later, Chu Mo came to a deep stream. It was a huge canyon, as if it had been split in half by a slash of some kind of sharp blade, and the cliffs on either side were so steep that a waterfall with a high flow of water flowed down from the top and smashed into the deep stream below with a loud sound. From a distance, it sounded like thunder. And at the bottom of the deep stream, Chu Mo clearly saw a small bamboo forest growing. Unlike the other bamboos in the bamboo sea, the bamboos in this bamboo forest took on a light blue color, and the bamboo leaves were all as if they were knives, emitting a stern aura. Sky Star Blade Bamboo. A flash of joy appeared in Chu Mo's eyes. Although he had already found his target, he did not immediately make his move, but instead looked around vigilantly. The intelligence had recorded that there was a very powerful ferocious beast here, that middle-aged beautiful venerable woman, both of whom were already in the middle stage of the 8 desolate venerable realm, had no power to resist even in front of this ferocious beast, and almost all of them were about to die. It was evident that the ferocious beasts were powerful. A careful search was made. Chu Mo soon realized that a deep and introverted aura was coming from not far away, but within this introverted aura, it carried a majestic power. Look closely. It was only then that I realized it was coming from the waterhole not far away. On the bank lay more than a dozen crocodiles of a similar color to the surrounding rocks. Each of them was strong and powerful, mostly at the 5th level. And around these crocodiles, there was also a huge crocodile with a huge body, hundreds of meters long, lying on the ground, its hard armor, which took on an eerie green glow, and its 4 legs were incredibly thick, each of which was even more massive than a human. The teeth were even more hideous, emitting a terrifying luster under the sunlight. The crocodile appears to be sleeping at this time. However, Chu Mo still felt an extremely terrifying pressure from it, almost making it difficult to breathe. This is a Class 7 fierce beast, the bloodthirsty mad crocodile. An existence comparable to the cave Heavenly King realm. Chu Mo's mind was greatly shaken. He hadn't expected that he would actually be able to encounter such a terrifying ferocious beast here no matter what. It made him frown. Although he had quite a bit of talent and was able to fight across levels, he would not be so confident as to, by any means, think that he could fight against a 7th level ferocious beast. I also wonder if the dark attribute talent can escape its probing? Chumhum suddenly thought the heavenly star blade bamboo was related to the metamorphosis of his blade cultivation talent, and Chu Mo could not possibly give it up no matter what. So, after a few moments of contemplation, he decided to give it a try. If it really didn't work and resulted in startling this ferocious beast, the big deal was to directly cast the spatial talent to instantly leave. After making up your mind, Chu Mo then operated his dark attribute talent and carefully arrived at the place where the heavenly star blade bamboo was growing. Chu Mo took out his long knife and looked at the fact that no ferocious beasts were paying attention to him for the time being, so he directly slashed at a bamboo. Clang! A sound of gold and iron clashing came out steeply. The heavenly star sword and bamboo came out in response. Without the slightest hesitation, Chu Mo directly collected it into his carry-on space. And just then, roar! Suddenly, a deafening roar came steeply, as if a thunderbolt had exploded in his ears, immediately shocking Chu Mo into dizziness. Spin. It was then that the terrifying bloodthirsty berserk crocodile was seen striding towards this side. With every step, the ground trembled with it, like an earthquake. The fluctuation of yuan qi that escaped from Chu Mo's bamboo cutting eventually caught the crocodile's attention. See this scene. Chu Mo's face changed, and he hastily collected all of his aura, hid in the shadows, and quickly moved away from the place. The crocodile came to the vicinity of the celestial star blade bamboo and turned around left and right a few times. This caused a look of doubt to appear in its eyes. Could it be that the fluctuations sensed earlier were an illusion? Although the 7th level ferocious beasts already possessed spiritual intelligence and could even speak, however, as a bloodthirsty berserker crocodile, it didn't have a high degree of spiritual enlightenment turned on. So, it was in deep doubt. Roar! 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 After thinking for a while with no results, plus it hadn't noticed any enemies sneaking up on it, and its own bamboo was intact, so it roared a few times, shattering the surrounding rocks to deter other creatures. Then it went back to sleep once again. Chapter 145, Chopping Away All the Heavenly Star Blade Bamboo, Transcendent Above. Phew! Far away. Chu Mo couldn't help but let out a long breath. It's really worthy of being a rank 7 ferocious beast, it's truly terrifying. A look of shock appeared in his eyes. The moment this bloodthirsty berserk crocodile was awakened earlier, Chu Mo only felt a terrifying aura suddenly awaken and envelop him. Facing such an aura that was like the pressure of heaven and earth, Chu Mo only felt numbness in his scalp and suffocated in his breath at that instant. Good on. The advanced dark attribute talent is very empowering. It made it impossible for this rank 7 ferocious beast to detect him at all. After easing his mind, Chu Mo saw that the bloodthirsty berserk crocodile had already returned to its original place to rest up, so he hid in the shadows once again and approached towards the heavenly star blade bamboo. It didn't take long. He then repeated the same trick and cut down an astral blade bamboo once again. And after doing that, Chu Mo then immediately disappeared. Almost at the same instant, the earth-shaking roar came again. The terrifying bloodthirsty berserker crocodile went berserk for a while, before quieting down. And next, in this deep stream, a roar came from time to time. Roar! 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 A few hours later, when Chu Mo once again cut down a blade bamboo and immediately left, the bloodthirsty berserker crocodile also quickly rushed over. So many times in a row, even if his intelligence was no longer good, it knew that there must be something fishy. More importantly, it realized that the number of its heavenly star blade bamboo seemed to be a little less, which made it extremely annoyed in its heart. Roar! Opening his mouth wide, the terrifying sound exploded once again. Compared to the previous, this time it was even more powerful, with the sound traveling far into the thousands of miles. Wherever it passes, the sound waves were like thunder, shattering countless pieces of mountain rocks into pieces, and some weak ferocious beasts that were close by were even directly shocked to death. Those bamboo sea is even more as if it has suffered a hurricane. Countless bamboos were overwhelmed and even broken at first glance. Within 1,000 miles, it was as if it had been struck by a terrifying hurricane. After venting, this bloodthirsty berserker crocodile surprisingly didn't go back, but stayed right where it was, a pair of hideous eyes the size of a millstone scanning the surroundings. It wanted to see if that fluctuation of yuan qi would still appear. Some trouble. Seeing the scene, Chuemo frowned. The bloodthirsty berserker crocodile was nearby watching over the area, even if he had the dark attribute talent to feel his way over, or even to quickly cast the spatial talent to escape after he made his sword to cut down the bamboo. But it's too risky. Once you dodge, you will immediately die. Just wait here. Let's see if this crocodile will leave. Chimo decided to wait around for a while. Thinking so, Chuemo then waited patiently up. Just 3 days passed in a row. This bloodthirsty berserker crocodile didn't even have the intention to leave, which made Chuemo a little anxious. Forget it. Why don't we take a risk and execute a full-force strike to cut down all the heavenly starblade bamboos, and then quickly instantly move away? Chumhum felt that he couldn't keep stalling like this. He was going to take a chance and try something. After deciding, Chuemo then exerted his dark attribute talent and carefully walked towards the direction where the heavenly starblade bamboo was growing. Soon, he then came to the vicinity of the bloodthirsty berserker crocodile, only less than 20 meters apart. Such a close distance allowed Chuemo to even feel the gusts of wind formed by the exhalations from this crocodile's mouth. It blew on the body and filled it with a dizzying, fishy odor. Chuemo approached even more carefully, even his breathing subconsciously stagnated. Finally, he came to the vicinity of the celestial starblade bamboo. Took a deep breath afterwards, he slowly operated the chi and blood in his body, waiting until the chi and blood fluctuations in his body reached a peak. Clank! The sound of a sword being unsheathed rang out suddenly. In the meantime, Yuan power stirred crazily, erupting out as if it were a volcano. 20 times the power of the undying thunder body was added. 50% of the blade intent is added. The Xiantian battling slash was executed. Chop. A low drink was given, but it emitted a terrifying tremor like the roar of a dragon or elephant, and the air was agitated as layers of it cracked open. This moment, Chumo's tendons and bones all around his body resonated in unison, his 365 blade orifices trembled in unison, purple thunder stirred madly all over his body, and the whole person seemed to have transformed into a god of the world, and the rigid and casteless force burst out from his dantian, poured into his spine, and drove his whole body, rushing towards his right hand as if he was being lapped by a shocking wave. Swish! A knife cuts out a light red-colored pike came out of the sky, as if it was a sword that opened up the sky, instantly cutting the sky apart for it. The blade chi swept out directly and landed on top of that piece of heavenly starblade bamboo. Wherever they passed, all of these hardened astral blade bamboos were chopped off in response and planted in unison. Just before they could completely land on the ground, they were all instantly collected by Chuemo into the carry-on space. Immediately after, without the slightest hesitation, he directly then performed an instantaneous transfer and left the place in a flash. The reason why he didn't use his dark attribute talent to stealthily and slowly escape was because it would be too slow. Once the bloodthirsty berserker crocodile became completely furious, it would be difficult for him to escape in a short period of time when he was so close. Roar! The bloodthirsty berserker crocodile once again felt that fluctuation of yuan qi. And unlike before, this time, the fluctuation of yuan qi was even more violent, almost like a volcanic eruption, making it instantly certain there really was a creature nearby. And almost simultaneously, it also saw the celestial starblade bamboo it was guarding. Originally, it was growing densely, but at this moment, surprisingly, not a single one was missing. Without saying anything, the bloodthirsty berserk crocodile's eyes instantly turned red. These heavenly starblade bamboo, it has been guarding for a long time, countless creatures that have prying eyes on it have been killed by it, but I didn't expect that today it would actually still be won over by other creatures. The loss of its heart and blood in one fell swept away its sanity in an instant. Only one of its front paws was first raised, followed by a heavy step downwards rumble. The earth-shaking sound immediately exploded. It was as if the earth was about to collapse, countless huge cracks were born from the ground, and a scorching aura gushed up from the ground. The scope of the wave was so wide that it even spread to a radius of thousands of miles. Countless ferocious beasts and bamboos either fell into the cracks or were burned up by the magma that gushed from the ground. Not even its fellow henchmen were spared. Have lost their lives under such an eruption of Earth's gas. The bloodthirsty berserk crocodile didn't care at all. At this point, it was completely mad, and it would be difficult for it to swallow its breath if it didn't kill this creature that dared to steal his treasures. Escape. Flee. Run. Chuemo didn't dare to turn back at all. Instead, he was unceasingly casting an instantaneous transfer. After casting more than 10 transients in a row in one breath, Chuemo had already escaped close to thousands of miles, but he still didn't dare to have any relaxation. After looking around, he then directly executed his Earth attribute talent and hid deep into an underground area. He then exerted his Dark attribute talent, collecting all of his aura, withdrawing all of his spiritual power completely, leaving only his spatial perception ability behind, and letting himself fall completely silent as for the ground. That horrible bloodthirsty maniacal crocodile. Realizing that it couldn't find Chuemo's figure at all, the angry one raged madly around it. The original mountain ranges were flattened, the rivers were cut off, the plains were sunk and turned into great lakes, and the bamboo sea, which stretched for 10,000 miles, was also largely damaged. Countless ferocious beasts died tragically with it. No doubt about it. This bloodthirsty berserk crocodile was completely mad. As for Tremor. At the moment, they were hiding at a depth of 3,000 to 4,000 meters underground, and could only rely on their spatial perception ability to learn about the situation above. Upon realizing that this bloodthirsty berserker crocodile was so terrifyingly strong, he even called out for a fluke in his heart if he hadn't made an instantaneous movement on the spur of the moment. I'm afraid that it would have been difficult to escape unharmed from the attack of this berserk crocodile. A level 7 ferocious beast, what a terror. Chuemo thought darkly. He then hid himself more carefully and waited for the bloodthirsty, rabid crocodile to calm down. 3 days later. Chuemo finally couldn't feel the tremor of the earth anymore. So he began to slowly move forward towards the ground. Soon, coming to the ground, he saw the devastated earth. A single word will set the world in motion, and a single anger will turn the river and the sea upside down. This is a rank 7 ferocious beast that can be compared to the cave Heavenly King realm. Such a terrifying scene allowed Chuemo to have a clearer perception of the destructive power of a rank 7 ferocious beast. Not daring to stay here any longer, Chuemo cast his Dark attribute talent and quickly left the place 3 hours later. Chuemo had already arrived in a huge dense forest tens of thousands of miles away. Using the autumn killing blade, he excavated a shelter in the ground, then sealed the opening and examined the harvest inside. Although this move to snatch the treasure from under the crocodile's nose was very risky, the rewards were also huge. Open the carry-on space. One could see hundreds of astral blade bamboos placed inside. 172 roots. After carefully counting them, Chuemo then began to chop off one section at a time, collecting the yuan liquid that was born within the bamboo sections. It took a full day and night to finally get it all done. And the final harvest was extremely gratifying. One kettle was completely filled and the other was mostly filled. Together, it's at least about 3 or 4 pounds. With so much yuan liquid from the heavenly star blade bamboo, I wonder how far I can raise my blade technique cultivation talent? A flash of anticipation appeared in Chuemo's eyes. Spin. He picked up a canteen, put it to his lips, and took a small sip. Meta liquid in the throat. Instantly turning into a stream of pure energy, it flowed into the limbs and bones of the body, and countless cells and genes became active with it, starting to reorganize and metabolize continuously. Half an hour later. The mysterious energy from this mouthful of yuan liquid was all absorbed, and Chuemo clearly felt that his sword cultivation talent had been enhanced. He rested for a moment, then took another sip. Next. Chuemo then immersed himself in seclusion, drinking a sip immediately after. The feeling of elevation disappeared every time. Time flows slowly. A day later, tingling pain came from Chuemo's body, and after enduring it, his blade technique cultivation talent was smoothly raised to the transcendent level. And that's when there were still 3 pounds of yuan liquid from the astral blade bamboo. So Chummer continued to ascend. Another 3 days passed. On this day, Chu Mo had just drunk a mouthful of yuan liquid. Only after refining for less than a quarter of an hour, he felt a sharp stabbing pain coming from within his body, which came directly from the depths of his soul, more intense than any previous time, making him feel as if his body had been cut into pieces by 1,000 knives. His flesh, blood, bone marrow, meridians, and even his soul had been cut off by a single inch of a powerful blade chi, chopping it up, and even rubbing it into pieces. Such a terrible pain, even Chu Mo could hardly endure it and almost fainted. Good thing he held on after all. It was a full half-hour before the pain began to slowly fade. Phew. Recovering a breath of air, Chu Mo immediately began to check his talent up. 3 days ago, his sword cultivation talent had then been raised to the transcendent level. And nowadays, what realm would it be when the talent for swordsmanship had been enhanced once again? Chapter 146 Morning Star Grade Blade Skill Talent, Achieving Supreme Blade Body. Target, Chumhum. Physique, Transcendental Undying Thunder Body. Talents, Morning Star Level Blade Cultivation Talent, Transcendent Level Fire Attribute Talent, Transcendent Level Earth Attribute Talent, Top Wind Attribute Talent, Higher Spatial Talent, Higher Wood Attribute Talent, Higher Water Attribute Talent, Higher Dark Attribute Talent, Medium Metallic Talent, so above the Transcendent level is called the Morning Star level. Looking at the brand new blade talent rank, Chu Mo's face revealed a flash of excitement. This is Morning Star level. Previously, because his saber cultivation talent was only just advanced, his saber intent was due to various chances and thus was raised to 50%, but was limited by his own saber talent and thus had no way to independently comprehend it. And nowadays, first, because of the blade spirit fruit and the heavenly star blade bamboo yuan liquid of the beautiful woman venerable sect, his blade talent was raised to the top, and later on, he utilized the yuan liquid to cross the transcendent level one after the other, and the ground reached the morning star level of blade talent in a short period of time. 3 grades were promoted one after another. Perhaps with his current talent, he would be able to completely comprehend the blade intent to the point of 10% perfection. If that was true, it would certainly make his blade technique even more powerful. Enlightenment. Thinking of this, Chu Mo immediately couldn't wait to start comprehending. He sat cross-legged with the autumn killing blade resting on his knees, and through the blade, he began to comprehend the meaning of the blade therein. Buzz off. In Chu Mo's idea world, this autumn killing blade seemed to truly come to life, pulling him into a very mysterious world. This is the world of knives. Countless saber intent and saber Dao laws appeared before his eyes. Compared to those obscure and difficult to understand saber intent wonders in the past, or even the saber Dao laws that were hard to comprehend, at this moment, under his morning star level talent, they were all very intuitively displayed in front of him, casually fluttering and swimming as if they were there for him to pick up. This caused his level of perception and understanding of blade intent to grow by leaps and bounds. He could feel it. His own blade intent was improving by leaps and bounds every moment. Moreover, after his secret estimation, he found that this speed of enlightenment had been enhanced by more than 100 times than when he was only a higher talent. More importantly, the Morning Star ranked blade talent had indeed broken the boundaries of his inability to continue his enlightenment, making it possible for his blade intent to continue to grow. Just one day. Chu Mo then comprehended the saber intent to 60%. A Morning Star level sword cultivation talent is truly terrifying. This speed of enlightenment is not even close to the enlightenment stone tablet. Chu Mo's heart was shaken. He then fell into enlightenment once again. Another 5 days passed. Chu Mo's saber intent crossed over to the 70% realm. And in that instant, Chu Mo then suddenly felt that the 365 blade orifices up and down his circumference suddenly trembled in unison. If you can look within yourself, Chu Mo could then see that the knife-shaped chi whirlpools condensed in the 365 acupoints all over his body suddenly began to rotate continuously. With its sharpness, it constantly stimulated and tempered his acupoints, making them more and more sturdy and powerful, and expanding them without stopping. In the meantime, Chu Mo suddenly heard a wild and overbearing sound of a blade resounding from within himself, the sound becoming more and more urgent and high. The moment it passes the bell, taking it as the center, the surrounding area of hundreds of miles in circumference, countless ferocious beasts all seemed to feel the approaching doomsday, suddenly revealing a look of panic, and then they actually directly crouched down on the ground, their whole body trembling. Buzz! 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 The sound of the sword's roar became stronger and stronger. A moment later, these saber sounds were like thunderous explosions. The 365 blade orifices in his body, moreover, after rotating to an extreme, suddenly rioted, like a rolling torrent, flowing through to the meridians. Like a howling wind and waves, it swept madly through Chu Mo's limbs and bones wherever he passed. Every muscle and bone in his entire body unexpectedly emitted a crackling berserk sound. The Xian Tian battling sword slash, gale-robbing thunder blade, and other previously learned blade techniques all subconsciously operated. The Yuanshan in the Violet Mansion was even meditating with its eyes closed, and the Yuanshan golden wheel at the back of its head bloomed with infinite light, drenching the Violet Mansion in a bright light. The moment, Chu Mo's essence was already highly united. Infinite blade chi stirred within him, seemingly brewing with infinite greatness. It's hard to know how long it's been. As if it were water, and as if the flower had blossomed, and in a flash. Boom! Chu Mo only felt that his Yuanshan was violently trembling, and his flesh was even steeply lighter, as if he had accomplished some sort of disembodiment. This is. Chum Hum opened his eyes on purpose and glanced at his message. The pupils in his eyes instantly shrunk abruptly. Physique, transcendent level supreme blade body. 70% blade intent is greatly accomplished, and it's actually able to condense a blade body? A shocked look appeared on Chu Mo's face. The so-called blade body is the blade intention to the realization of a certain realm, resulting in changes in the physical quality, so that the martial artist can be more intimate with the sword, in the performance of the sword, can play a more powerful power. At first, Chu Mo comprehended 30% of the blade intent, thus opening up 365 blade orifices, and now that 70% of the blade intent had come to fruition, it was even more so that the 365 blade orifices around his body were linked together, accomplishing a supreme blade body. Once the blade body is complete, the power of the blade technique can be greatly increased when it is performed, and the speed of enlightenment can also be enhanced when practicing any blade technique from now on. But the sword has no end. Even though the entire body through the 365 knife orifices, the achievement of the supreme knife body, but also need to practice diligently, the only way to learn a variety of knife skills, instilled in the heart, will be able to open up their own among the knife road. Once the blade body was completed, Chu Mo had a clearer perception of his blade path. At the same time, it was clear to see the path ahead. Now that he had already comprehended 70% of the blade intent, when the 10% of the blade intent had been perfected, if he wanted to continue to improve, he would need to open up his own Tao. And the blade body condensed at this time was to pave the way for the opening of the Tao of the blade. It's two. The blade body is not an extreme, but only a beginning. Right now it's a bit impractical to try to open up the Tao of the blade with just my strength. But now that you have achieved the blade body, you can completely break through the limitations of what you have learned in the past. First, when you strike the sword, forget all forms and strokes, forget even yourself and the sword in your hand, everything moves with your heart, at will, and ultimately reach the realm where the sword follows the heart. Thinking so, Chu Mo directly began to cultivate. During the process of practicing, his mind was free of distractions, and his entire being fell into a state of emptiness and nothingness. In his eyes, everything in the world had disappeared, and the only thing that remained was the sword in his hands. Only a swish 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 sound could be heard as the blade sliced through the void, and a silky chill filled the surroundings. In the meantime, Chu Mo only felt that his Yuan Shen was trembling along with him, and when he practiced the sword technique, he actually had a marvelous feeling of being in tune with heaven and earth in this sensation. His body was no longer fleshly and mortal, but as if it had turned into a sword. A man is a sword and a sword is a man. In an instant, Chu Mo had entered the marvelous ground of human sword unity. That's not all. In the beginning, Chu Mo's sword swing seemed to carry some rules and regulations, but then this sword technique became more and more messy, and in the end it was actually completely devoid of any system. Everything just seems to swing the knife at will. Use your left hand if you want to use your left hand, and use your right hand if you want to use your right hand. Chop when you want, sweep when you want. Everything goes with the heart and the mind. In the midst of such constant cultivation, soon, the knife in his hand had disappeared from his eyes. No. Not just disappearing in his eyes, but even in reality. If an outsider is here at the moment, it would be horrified to realize that although Chu Mo had been waving his sword, they could not even see the existence of a sword. It was as if it had disappeared into thin air. It's certainly not really gone. Rather, as Chu Mo continued to cultivate, his sword transformed from tangible to intangible, from being bound to the situation, it became whatever he wanted it to be, and the sword followed his heart. In the meantime, the hint of messiness, too, began to fade away. When this trace of messiness completely disappeared into thin air, Chu Mo's entire person also seemed to have disappeared into thin air. It's like no one's here unless they've seen him practicing his sword with their own eyes. The feeling is extremely odd and cannot be described in words. But at this moment, if someone was here and saw this scene, I'm afraid that a thought would inevitably arise in their mind: Chu Mo's sword, even stronger. 5 days later, Chu Mo finally woke up from such cultivation. He let out a long breath, a look of surprise on his face. An epiphany to realize the realm of following one's heart. Even spied on my future path of the Tao of the Blade. What a great harvest this outing. Chu Mo felt excited from the bottom of his heart. After his blade talent entered the Morning Star level, it allowed him to reach 70% of his blade intent and achieve a supreme blade body. It made his blade technique even stronger, and his strength almost skyrocketed. And comprehending the realm of the blade following the heart, although it did not allow his strength to be enhanced, it did allow him to see the future direction of the Tao of the Blade. In Tremor's opinion, this was the biggest gain. Come back to your senses. Chu Mo intended to swallow all of the remaining bit of Heavenly Star Blade Bamboo Yuan liquid, but realized that he could not get any growth in his Morning Star level blade technique cultivation talent. It was thought that the Astral Blade Bamboo Yuan liquid no longer worked. Had to put the rest away in the carry-on space. Counting the days, I realized that it had been a long time since this outing. Chummer then planned to go back. As for comprehending blade intent, after he had reached 70% of his enlightenment, his speed began to gradually slow down. Continued enlightenment is not something that can be achieved overnight. Just as well. Just go back. Thinking so, Chu Mo stepped out of the cave. The whole person steeply rose up and turned into a stream of light, flying towards the sky. And just after he left, the originally silent jungle suddenly kicked up a breeze. Spin. A muffled snort sound that rose and fell abruptly. It was followed by a rumbling explosion, a large tree that exploded with a loud bang. That's not all. It was as if a signal had accompanied the blowing up of the first large tree. Poof. Pft. Poof. Next, countless grasses and trees, all of which were pierced by the invisible blade chi at this moment, exploded apart. In the meantime, within a radius of 100 miles, those ferocious beasts that were crouching down out of fear, even more so, had their bodies stiffen and froze in place. A breeze is blowing. Who? The bodies of countless ferocious beasts actually exploded instantly, their bodies being turned into pieces and dissipating into the void. Original. Their bodies were surprisingly invaded by the countless blade chi that escaped from Chu Mo's body while he was practicing with his blade. And in that moment, they are actually dead. That's why his body exploded when he was blown by the wind. It's just that none of this was seen by Chumo. Chapter 147 Li Family Sisters, Grade 6 Fierce Beast Charging Sword Falcon. In midair Chumo was flying towards the large base in Jinling. But something that had not previously occurred to him suddenly came into his mind. According to what that honored one said, the celestial star blade bamboo only grows in places where the blade chi is thick. This also means that in the vicinity of the heavenly star blade bamboo, there is bound to be another treasure that is even more precious and related to blade chi. Chumo's eyes steeply revealed a flash of essence. But then, in a whirlwind, he frowned. Even if he knew that there were even more precious heavy treasures in the vicinity of the heavenly star blade bamboo, he didn't have the strength to go over and explore them right now. That 7th-level ferocious beast bloodthirsty berserk crocodile had only just lost its temper, and now I'm afraid that it was the right time to be vigilant. If Chumo were to go over there again, once he was detected, he would definitely be chased by the bloodthirsty berserk crocodile. Even if one had the spatial talent to instantly move, it would probably be hard to shake it off. The danger is too great. We can only wait for our strength to increase and then make another trip over. Thinking of this, Chumo shook his head and dismissed the idea of returning to explore again. Just as Chumo returned to the Jinling large base. In the meantime, in the middle of the road between the large base in Jinling and the sea of purple bamboo forest, a small base called Wanling was in the midst of a great battle. Here, at this moment, it has been reduced to ruins as far as the eye could see. There was debris everywhere, and corpses were everywhere. Amidst the ruins, there was a young girl and teenager who were holding each other in pain. In front of them, an old man with a head full of white hair was spitting out blood. The breath was extremely shriveled. And in the sky above, a powerful aura ravaged the heavens and earth. However, this old man did not even look at the sky above. Instead, his eyes merely stared at the teenage girl in front of him. Young Wei, Xian, remember what the old ancestor said. Run. Run as far as you can. Leave the small base of Wanling. Leave this place, go incognito, and worship a great power to cultivate. If there is a chance in this life, when you have accomplished your cultivation, you will come back to avenge my Li family, and if there is no hope then never come back. Did you hear me? As he spoke, his mouth opened again and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The siblings looked at their former kindly old ancestor, who was now spitting blood, and just howled, "Old ancestor. Don't cry. As a disciple of the Li family, blood is shed without tears." With a glare, the old ancestor told the siblings to stop crying, and then tremblingly pulled out a jade pendant from his bosom. This is the treasure of my Li clan's family, called the Convergent Jade. It didn't have any power, and only managed to conceal its aura, so even a Seal King powerhouse couldn't detect it. With it, you will be able to escape the 10,000 Beasts sect. With that, he placed the jade around the young girl's neck. Do it all. He seemed to have tugged at his injuries, and again, he couldn't help but spit out several large mouthfuls of blood in a row. It almost became urgent at that moment as well. Still, he braced himself, his eyes rounded, and he held the young girl's hand tightly. Remember, be sure to live and be well. This is the only thing the old ancestor expects from you before he dies. Hear that? Did you hear that? The siblings forced back their tears and nodded. They were supposed to be brother and sister. The young girl is a little older, 14 years old, named Li Yue. The young man is a little younger, 13 years old, named Li Xuanji. The two came from the Li family, a small base in Wanling. The Li family had a four-directions Shin general realm ancestor sitting in the middle, in addition to a number of patriarchal realm elders in the small base of Wanling. It belonged to the topmost big family. Even within a medium-sized base, it was still a big power that wasn't weak. By the way, coming from such a large family, if there were no accidents, it would never be possible to end up in such a situation. Not to mention, both siblings, Li Yue and Li Xuanji, were born extraordinary and possessed extraordinary talent. Li Yue has the best glazed jade bone. When she was born, the sky dropped a strange fragrance, the moonlight poured into her body, and the sweet rain fell for 3 days and 3 nights, which led to the heaven and earth to congratulate her, and she started from the realm of a martial artist. And younger brother Li Xuanji was even more terrifying. At the time of his birth, the purple chi came from the east for 1,000 miles, leading to the descent of the heavenly fire, leaving a little bit of the innate fire spirit to wash the marrow and forge the bones. For him it was accompanied by the seed of heavenly flame innately, transforming it into the heavenly flame divine body. The Li family had successively appeared 2 descendants who were born extraordinary, which naturally drew the Li family to rejoice. Li family's only 4 sides of the town will be the old man is from the closed door out, said that this is their Li family's dragon son and phoenix daughter, will lead the Li family to a more powerful point. But they also know such a talent, if born in a big family, is just for small clans like them unless they worshipped among the powerful forces. Once they were discovered by other evil sects, they were bound to be unprotected. For this reason they did not dare to vocalize it out, but instead carefully covered it up. Let the sibling never reveal their gift. Only when they reached the age of 15 and their forging was complete, they would be sent to a major power to become a core true disciple. The days passed slowly. Everyone in the Li family was looking forward to the siblings growing up. But who knows, the sky is the limit. Their talents were still unintentionally leaked out by one of the core disciples of the Li family. So it drew an outcry. The entire Wanling Great Base was shaken by this. Immediately after that, the 10,000 Beasts sect sent someone. That elder of the 10,000 Beasts sect, high and mighty, spoke of taking the siblings away in front of everyone in the Li family. It will be given to them to give them a king-level ferocious beast to become a slave handmaiden under the seat. Although the 10,000 Beasts sect was a force formed by humans, they rebelled against the human race and instead believed in ferocious beasts. In order to please the ferocious beasts, they even go so far as to kill fellow humans, and although their Li family was weak, they could never be in the same boat as the human traders, and how could they send their offspring out to become slaves of the ferocious beasts? Not to mention Li Xuanji and Li Yue siblings, is the hope of the rise of the Li family. There is no reason to send out. The Li clan's ancestor directly drove the elders of the 10,000 Beasts sect away. The 10,000 Beasts sect didn't say anything more at that time and simply left. But the Li family was thus in a state of worry. Their Li family had provoked the 10,000 Beasts sect, and they were bound to receive retaliation. In order to preserve the Li family, and also to preserve the Li Yue siblings, the Li family's old ancestor had to immediately contact his old friends in the Zhonghai superbase, hoping to send the Li Yue siblings into the big power to cultivate, and at the same time also relocate the Li family's family within the superbase. That person was an elder of a big power in the Zhonghai superbase. If he could send someone, the Li family would not have to worry about the retaliation of the 10,000 Beasts sect. But who knows? 3 days later, before the old friend of the Li clan's ancestor arrived, an 8 desolate venerable from the 10,000 Beasts sect visited the sky above the Li clan. With just one palm, the small base of Wanling was destroyed by half, and all the clansmen of the Li family even died under this palm. The large Li family became a ruin. Fortunately, at the last moment, the Li family's oldest ancestor noticed and tried his best to protect the siblings Li Yue and Li Xuanji. It is also the scene that is happening right in front of us. Your talents are extraordinary, you will surely step into the supreme realm in the future. The severely injured old ancestor, even though he had come to the walking end of his life, was still kindly exhorting, be sure to live and cultivate well. But alas! And yet I can't see this scene. He sighed. But then he turned his gaze to the mid-air, revealing a color of hatred. Hate the 10,000 Beasts sect, if it weren't for them. The Wanling small base and my Li family wouldn't have been able to encounter this kind of misfortune. Even if I die, I will never let them get away with it. Having said that, the old ancestor braced himself and stood up, burning all of his remaining longevity. However, he was seen to have his breath begin to climb upward. 10,000 Beasts sect, even if I die, I will fight you to the death. the words fell. The old ancestor flew up into the midair and fought with that divine powerhouse. The siblings, however, just watched their kindly old ancestor run resolutely to his death. Elder ancestor. With teary eyes, they looked at their old ancestor and cried out. Alive. Must live. In the sky, the old ancestor's hoarse roar came from the sky. Sometimes growth, often in a moment. Seeing all of their relatives and elders who had doted on them since childhood die in front of them. Seeing the old ancestor put his life on the line in exchange for precious time for them to escape. The moment. They grew up completely. Hold back the grief and fear of heartache. Dry your tears and hold back your fear. Holding hands, the siblings took one last look at their oldest ancestor and then began to run for their lives. Headed for the hills and running for his life. Rumble. Behind them, there was a violent explosion, a bright light that shines throughout the base. The siblings knew that this was the last sparkle of their old ancestor. But they don't dare turn around. Fearing that if he turned around, he would see the scene of the old ancestor's death. More than anything, I'm afraid of this turnaround. There would be no more courage to run for your life. They couldn't let down the opportunity that the old ancestor had traded his life for them. Chuemo didn't know about what happened at the small base in Wanling. At this point, while he was flying, he was in a bit of trouble. A flying bird with an extremely large body suddenly blocked his way. This ferocious beast was an eagle falcon. Its feathers were black and shiny, and at the edges of its wings, its feathers were harsh like swords, emitting a powerful aura. Grade 6 medium ferocious beast, the charging sword falcon. Trumbo figured out the origin of this ferocious beast fresh. This sword falcon saw Chuemo and immediately let out a high chirp, treating him as prey and instantly rushing over. The body was like a sword, extremely swift, and the powerful wings could even cut through space. What speed? Chuemo was shocked in his heart. However, he didn't show any panic on his face. Instead, he even drew out his autumn killing blade in a neat manner. It just so happens that now that I've achieved 70% of my blade intent and accomplished a supreme blade body, I'll take you to try out how far my blade technique has reached nowadays. Chumo's eyes brightened as he secretly thought. Just in time. The sword falcon had already rushed to Chumo's body, and its two dark, glowing claws, emitting a hideous luster, grabbed towards Chumo's head. The eyes were about to crush his head. Chop. A low drink. An extremely stern blade intent suddenly surged out from Chumo's body, accompanied by a terrifying to the extreme aura that instantly swept out Shasta. Only to see a light red pike cut through the sky, as if it was opening up the sky and chopping down on the sword falcon. Prickle puff. Only a sound of grinding teeth could be heard, followed by the dull sound of a knife entering flesh. Raise your eyes. It was seen that the body of the charging sword falcon was directly sliced from the center, split into two halves, and fell towards the ground. In midair, a large rain of blood showered down. Chapter 148 Sword Falcon Tests Sword, Wilderness Meets Heaven's Pride. It's really worthy of 70% blade intent, it's really strong. Looking at the body of the Skyrush Sword Falcon, Chuemo couldn't help but nod his head in satisfaction. He did not utilize any other talents when he chopped out this blade, merely using his physical strength and adding his blade intent, but the result was to cleanly kill a rank 6 medium ferocious beast. Putting it before, he simply couldn't do it. After accomplishing the blade body, one can burst out with such a terrifying attack power without a talent addition. If the many talents are added, perhaps a ferocious beast of the late 6th level 6 will not be my opponent. Chuemo thought secretly, his heart was very happy. Lower your form. After removing the heart blood of this rank 6 ferocious beast and collecting the materials, Chuemo then flew away from this place. Slaying a class 6 fierce beast. If it was before, Chuemo might have been excited for a long time. However, to this day, it was already difficult for an ordinary rank 6 ferocious beast to pose a threat in his hands, so naturally, he would not be upset. Just as Chumo was leaving, the moment. On top of the ruins of the small base in Wanling, an old man in a black robe had just beheaded the Li family's old ancestor and was currently searching the ruins for any sign of the Li family's siblings when he suddenly seemed to sense something and his face changed abruptly. Bold. Who on earth dares to kill my beast pet? His face was gloomy, and his words carried endless killing intent. His name was Zhu Zhua, an elder of the 10,000 Beasts sect, and this time, he came to the Wanling Great Base in his beast pet, the charging sword falcon, with orders to overthrow the Li family. Because the kestrels were hungry, they were released to feed freely. As he thought. In the vicinity of a small base in the district, it was impossible for any powerful ferocious beasts to appear, so he was very relieved. But who knows? He suddenly realized that his connection with the charging sword falcon was broken. There was only one possibility for this situation, and that was that one's beast pet was dead. Present, he didn't care about searching for the Li sisters, so he directly followed the direction that the charging sword falcon had taken before its death and searched for it. 2 hours later. He then found the vicinity where the battle had erupted, and at the same time saw the body of the charging sword falcon that had been split in half. Just walked the neighborhood. He then felt a strong blade intent permeate the area. Although the charging sword falcon is only a rank 6 medium ferocious beast, it's extremely fast, and it's difficult for even an ordinary late stage 8 desolate exalted realm to cut it down. And now, it was killed with a single slash. The one who killed it was a mighty swordsman. There's even such a powerful existence near the small base of Wanling? A look of disbelief appeared on his face. But then, the wink of disbelief then disappeared. In its place was a cold sternness. No matter who you are, if you dare to kill my sky-rushing sword falcon and mess with my 10,000 Beasts sect, it's the way to death. This seat must find you and break you into pieces. He grunted coldly. Then it left the place. It was still imperative to find the Li siblings first. A remote mountain range. A frightened-looking girl was holding a boy's hand and running through clenched teeth. The little girl looked no more than 14 or 15 years old, with a yellow face. However, his appearance was very decent, especially his eyes, which were cold and clean and contained a radiant luster. But perhaps because of the long journey, his spirit looked a bit depressed and he was dirty. A face full of exhaustion. And her hand holding the boy, but only 13 or 14 years of age. Obviously his face was childish, but there was a determination in his eyes. Even though blood was already seeping out of the soles of his feet, he was still clenching his teeth and not saying a word. Run along with the girl. These two people, is from the Wanling small base all the way to escape Li Yue Li Xuanji siblings. Relying on the old ancestor to buy them time at the cost of his life. The siblings escaped the small base of Wanling. Along the way, although they didn't encounter any pursuers, they didn't dare to stay down or even turn back, running desperately. After all this time, they didn't know how far they had gotten out. Though the pursuers never showed up. But they didn't dare stop. Because they are afraid that if they stop, they will never be able to walk again. Even more so, they were afraid that once the pursuers appeared, they would never be able to escape again. The old ancestor had traded his life for the chance to stay alive for them, and it couldn't be wasted just like that. Although Li Yue was born with cultivation in her body, in the end, she was only at the martial artist realm. And although Li Xuanji was carrying the heavenly flame body, he wasn't even a martial artist. Coupled with the fact that they were still young and had fled in panic all the way, their spirits had long been on the verge of being stretched to the limit. At this moment, all of them have reached the end of their strength. Finally, Li Xuanji, the younger brother who had been gritting his teeth and holding on, had finally reached his limit. One was unsteady and fell to the ground with a loud thud. Seeing this, my sister was shocked. Hurriedly, he tried to check on his brother's condition. But who knew that as soon as she squatted down, the sky spun around and she also fell to the ground at once at the last moment of fainting. She saw that in the distant sky under the setting sun, there was a bright light trailing a long stream of light, flying towards this side. Is it a shooting star? It's so pretty, she murmured. The eyes had, at that moment, become mesmerized. In this short period of less than a day, she went from being the first lady of the Lee family, all in one, to the point where they are now being hunted and fleeing for their lives in fear all the way. She endured the pain of loved ones and elders dying in front of her, all the while trying to calm his brother down. She has endured so much. But she, just a 14-year-old girl after all. She's too tired. She just wanted to get some rest. Even if it was just for a little while. Think of it this way. Her originally tense mind couldn't help but begin to relax. A strong sense of exhaustion surged through him instantly. Her will began to disintegrate. However, right about this time, Li Yue, whose consciousness was a bit hazy, suddenly saw that the meteor flying in the distant sky was actually gradually approaching and then landing. Until then, it took her a moment to see. Turns out it was a person after all. The terrifyingly majestic aura on the visitor's body was even more terrifying than the family's old ancestor. It was going to be even more powerful than the evil man who had overthrown their Li family. And more than that, she felt in a trance. This man, dressed in a black suit, standing with his hands behind his back, had a handsome and extraordinary appearance, carrying a calm and steady aura. Especially those eyes. Deep, calm. It was as if nothing in the world would cause waves in his eyes. Is he an immortal in the sky? She murmured. And just then, she suddenly saw in the distance the immortal who had descended from the sky, bending his gaze over under the nameless mountain range. One glance is a mistake. The moment her consciousness fell into darkness, Li Yue's mind was then filled with this scene, completely. Chimo had been flying for 3 hours. According to the location marked on the route, at this time he was still 5 hours away from the Jinling big base. It was supposed to fly back in one breath. But now it was already evening, and according to the labeling on the map, there was a powerful ferocious beast not far ahead that was good at traveling at night, so it would be easy to crash into it if he flew at this moment while it was still night. Therefore, Chuemo stopped rushing and was prepared to first drop down and open up a tree hole nearby to rest for the night. By the way, he was also able to take in some sort intent. But who knows? Just landed on the ground, before he searched around what place is more suitable for living, he suddenly saw 2 children fainted on the ground not far in front of him. This caused Chuemo to immediately be stunned. Step forward. Just seeing that these 2 children had a few similarities in looks, it looked like they should be siblings. Chuemo was able to see that these 2 children were in a very sorry state. It looked like they should have been running away for some time, and the reason why they were unconscious was also caused by exhaustion under the mental strain. This made him even more puzzled in his mind. Why are there children here in the middle of this deep forest? Could it be an encounter with a ferocious beast? What about their families? Trummer frowned. Spreading out his mental power, he wanted to search the neighborhood. But there was no sign of any other human within a radius of tens of miles. Chuemo frowned slightly and pondered for a moment. After all, he was not a person with a heart of stone. At this moment, he saw 2 children lying in the middle of nowhere. If he didn't care about it, if he got up tomorrow, these 2 people would definitely be devoured by ferocious beasts with no bones left. Therefore, he picked up these 2 people with one hand. He then opened up a hiding cave nearby with the autumn killing blade and hid inside. Seal the hole. He also laid these 2 children flat on the ground and fed them pills that restored their vitality and soothed their souls, respectively. But their bodies had already reached their limits and were simply unable to actively absorb the medicinal power. Therefore, Chuemo then passed over a trace of yuan qi to help them dissolve it. Just when Chumo's yuan qi made a turn inside the 2, he suddenly froze. Face. Even more so, he revealed a look of disbelief. These 2. He subconsciously used his spatial perception ability to probe his spirit into the 2. Hera saw that in the young girl's chest and abdomen, there was a glazed jade bone, emitting a faint luster, and in the teenager's dantian, a little bit of heavenly fire seed was stored, carrying a terrifying temperature. These two, both of them are actually equipped with excellent talents and physiques. Chumo couldn't help but suck in a breath of cool air. The glazed jade bone and heavenly flame seed within the two of them not only made their cultivation talent extremely strong, but more importantly, it also allowed them to forge their Tao foundation. In other words, this was equivalent to the fact that although they had yet to cultivate, they already possessed the foundation of the Tao that only limit-breaking martial artists could forge before the sovereign. Moreover, it was no better than the flawless Tao foundation that Chumo had forged with the innate jade bead. Such a terrifying talent would be meticulously cared for and nurtured in any major power and family. And they. What on earth has befallen you that you should be reduced to this state, even fainting in the middle of nowhere? The moment. This thought once again surfaced in Chumo's mind. Chapter 149 Apprenticely Family Siblings, Demonic Talent. In the middle of a hole in the ground. Li Yue woke up quietly. The first thing she did after waking up was to first look at her brother, and only after realizing that Li Xuanji was not in any serious trouble, and was merely asleep and still awake, did she relax. But then, in a whirlwind, he realized that he was in an unfamiliar environment. Could it be that my brother and I have been captured by the 10,000 beasts sex people after all? Li Yue's face instantly paled, she was instantly like an enemy, and immediately wanted to protect her brother, but, just then. Instead, her nose suddenly twitched as she smelled some faint scent coming from outside. So she stepped out carefully. Just then, he saw a young man in black clothes roasting food in the clearing, and a faint scent came from it. At this point, the sun was rising and warm rays were falling in through the gaps between the leaves. Shining on the figure, it was as if it was covered in a layer of golden radiance, dazzling. Li Yue immediately froze in place. This guy. It was the immortal she had seen before she passed out. Did you save me? Li Yue subconsciously asked. Chumo heard the sound and turned around. He couldn't help but smile. You're awake, your body doesn't feel sick yet? I saw you fainted in the mountain field, so I saved the two of you to take the elixir. The one inside is your brother? What have the two of you gone through, and why have you been reduced to this? Words. Li Yue was silent for a moment. But soon, she raised her head, looked at Chumo, and said, "Thank you for saving me and my brother. As for the reason why we have been reduced to this situation is because we have been pursued by our enemies. A whole family was wiped out and only my brother and I escaped." For some reason, she had a great deal of trust in Chumo. Maybe it's because Tremor saved them. Or perhaps it was because the figure filled her heart with that one glance before she passed out. So much so that in the face of Chumo's question, she actually told the whole story without avoiding it. And after hearing Li Yue's life experience, Chumo could not help but frown. He hadn't thought that there was such a simplicity in it. Traitor of the human race, founding the 10,000 Beasts sect. Worshipping ferocious beasts, mainly, specializing in hunting, the pride of the human race. It seems that I have inadvertently incurred a big trouble. Chumo glanced at Li Yue and thought darkly. Sure. He wouldn't be able to learn about the 10,000 Beasts sect and thus leave these two people behind. And let's not talk about the fact that the 10,000 Beasts sect was a traitor to the human race, specializing in brutalizing the pride of the human race. Chumo, as a member of the human race, naturally couldn't see death to save him. Secondly, you are burdened with such a blood feud, do you want to take revenge? Chumo suddenly opened his mouth and inquired. Think. Li Yue immediately nodded her head. But then she shook her head, her gaze dimmed. But the 10,000 Beasts sect is too powerful, with my own strength, it's just too hard to take revenge. How hard can it be? Li Yue, you have unrivaled talent, you are the pride of the world. If you practice martial arts and cultivate it carefully, in time, you will soar to the heavens and become a generation of powerhouses. I am the master of the Tianji Pavilion of the Great Base of Jinling, and today I ask you, are you willing to enter my discipline to cultivate? Chu Mo said in a deep voice. Not bad. The moment he saw the two Li Yue, Chu Mo's heart gave birth to the idea of loving talent, wanting to take them as disciples. Both of their siblings were extremely terrifyingly talented and had high growth ceilings. If he could cultivate properly, in time, he would surely become a strong generation. By accepting them as disciples under his door at this moment, in a few decades, he would have two more major left and right arms. Sure, accepting these two as disciples also meant that it would leave behind a hidden danger. Once the 10,000 Beasts sect found out about this, they would definitely not be able to do anything with him. But compared to such a gain, the risk of messing with the 10,000 Beasts sect was really insignificant to Chu Mo. You want to take me as your disciple? Li Yue didn't know what Chu Mo was thinking, and when she heard this at this moment, she suddenly froze, as if she couldn't believe her ears. Nice. Chu Mo looked at the young girl and said softly, "Are you willing?" Words. Li Yue was silent for a moment. Subsequently, she raised her head, looked at Chu Mo, and asked earnestly, cultivating in Tianji Pavilion, is there any hope of overthrowing the 10,000 Beasts sect in the future? Hear that? Trummer laughed. He looked at Li Yue with a wide smile, but the words he said were serious. The district 10,000 Beasts sect is just that, even with a king-level powerhouse in attendance. Trying to overthrow it. Easy as pie, too. These words were spoken when they were really arrogant. Within the great base of Jinling, the highest strength Mo clan's old ancestor was only at the middle stage of the 8 desolate exalted realm. And a great power that was comparable to a king-level powerhouse was just like the 7th-level bloodthirsty berserk crocodile in the sea of purple bamboo forests. Once it got angry, tens of thousands of miles of square earth would be sunk for it. It wasn't long ago that Chu Mo had just been scared away by its terrifying power. But at this moment, in his mouth, such a top-notch existence was as small as dirt. It certainly wasn't something Chummer took at face value, rather, he was confident. Even if he was not a match for the 7th-level ferocious beast now, soon, he would be able to kill the 7th-level ferocious beast with his strength. And that time, it won't be too late. This kind of confidence, if others knew about it, they would definitely think that Chu Mo was crazy. However, Li Yue, believed it. She looked at Chummer fixedly. After a long time. Disciple Li Yue, greetings, to Master. Speaking. She fell to her knees and kowtowed 3 times in succession to pay homage to Chu Mo. Get up. Seeing Li Yue pay her respects to her master, Chu Mo's heart was very happy, and after frankly bearing this gift, he personally bent down and helped her up. And that's when Li Xuanji had also awakened. Subsequently, after learning about the current situation, Li Xuanji also went along with the trend of worshipping under Chu Mo, accompanied by Li Xuanji kowtowing and paying respect to his master. After the ritual was completed, Chu Mo opened his mouth and said, "Since you guys have already worshipped me as your master, then my master will tell you my name. I'm called Chu Mo, and I'm currently in the Jinling Big Base, and I've set up a force named Tianji Pavilion." He briefly recounted his situation. Subsequently, Chu Mo then took out an instrument that was about 2 meters tall from within his carry-on space. Li Yue and Li Xuanji curiously came over and asked, "Master, what is this?" "Talented physique testing machine." Chummer replied. "A talent testing machine? Why doesn't it look like the one I grew up with at home?" Both were curious. Talent and physique testing machines, which many martial arts academies and big powers would configure, waited until the teenagers under their command reached the age of 15 to have their talent and physique tested. For example, when Chu Mo was still at the Luoyang base, he was depressed because he had not detected his talent and physique. As for Li Yue, they came from the Li family, and the clan was naturally equipped with them. Because it's the latest machine developed. Chummer explained. This talent and physique testing machine that he had acquired was said to be the latest model developed by the Zhonghai Super Base, and theoretically the highest value could detect transcendent level talent and physique. Even children under the age of 15 could be detected. It is therefore extremely expensive. With the price that his Jade Merchant Alliance's guest secretary could get a 20% discount, he purchased 2 units in the Jade Merchant Alliance, which also cost a full 560 million yuan stones. There was one placed in the Tianji Pavilion's headquarters, and there was another one that he carried with him. After the installation, Trummer said, "Who wants to try it first?" "Me first." Li Xuanji was looking forward to it and was a bit eager to try it out. "Okay, then you go first. Stand on the platform, place your hand on top of the orb, meditate and sync your breath, and the machine will show your talent and physique level," Trummer said. Li Xuanji followed Chu Mo's instructions and came to the platform of the machine, then stretched out his right hand and touched the orb in front of him. Shasta. It was seen that on the screen of the talent physique testing machine, a line of values appeared steeply on the left side and began to climb rapidly, then suddenly reached the top. Full physique. Chu Mo's eyes stared. This latest model of machine could test up to the transcendent level, which meant that Li Xuanji had reached the full level, and was at least a transcendent level physique. And most likely beyond. It just can't be tested because it's limited by the measuring range of the machine. Subsequently. Right side of the screen again. The column representing the fire attribute steeply began to climb, eventually reaching its limit quickly as well. That's not all. The column representing the wind attribute also steeply began to jump, eventually staying at the top stage. The wind attribute talent is top-notch, and the fire attribute talent is likewise at full level. Maybe the physique and fire attribute talent have both reached the Morning Star level. Chu Mo's eyes shrunk slightly, somewhat shocked. "Master, what is the Morning Star level?" Li Xuanji was a bit puzzled when he heard the words Morning Star level in Chu Mo's words. Although they were family-born and had been carefully nurtured since childhood, they were ultimately limited by their eyesight, and thus did not know about the Morning Star level. Don't say that the Li family, which comes from a small base. I'm afraid that even within the Jinling Great Base, there were probably very few people who could know that above the transcendent level was the Morning Star level gifted physique. Cultivation talent and physique are all categorized into weak, substandard, inferior, medium, high, top, and transcendent levels. And above the transcendent level, it is called the Morning Star level. Your cultivation physique and fire attribute talent have both broken through the transcendent level, and according to my estimation, it's likely to be the Morning Star level. Chummer explained. Then to what realm can a Morning Star level talent be cultivated? Li Xuanji couldn't wait to ask. If there are no accidents, one can at least cultivate to the King Seal realm. Chummer said. Hearing these words, a flash of joy appeared in Li Xuanji's eyes. Cultivating to at least the Seal King realm, which also meant that there was hope for him to take revenge in the future. While looking at Li Xuanji's excited appearance, Chu Mo secretly lamented. He was still only 13 years old, and there was still more than a year to go before his talent and physique were completely finalized at the age of 15. If you extrapolate with common sense, both talent and physique should still get some enhancement. In other words, perhaps Li Xuanji's talent and physique might have to be even stronger than the Morning Star level. "Sister, it's your turn, let's see how talented you are." At this time, Li Xuanji came back to his senses and shouted at Li Yue. The latter also nodded and then stepped up to the machine with great anticipation. Chu Mo also bent his gaze over rather curiously. The results were unsurprising. Her natural physique, too, had both reached full level. Chapter 150. Returning to the base, the 10,000 Beasts Sect's Sinister Secrets. Full physique, full water attribute talent, full light attribute. Looking at Li Yue's talent and physique, Chu Mo was completely shocked. Though he knew that these two were bound to have good talent. But no matter what, it was not expected to be as strong as this. Such a strong talent and physique, and with such a body encounter, is simply the son of heaven's destiny. Such a thought suddenly sprang up in Chu Mo's mind. "Master, how is my talent?" Li Yue asked a little nervously. "It's very good, and the future is no different compared to Xuanji," Chum Hum said with a smile as he returned to his senses. Li Yue was instantly relieved. At this point, The sun came up completely. The three of them simply ate a roasted meal, and then Chu Mo took the two of them and flew away, preparing to leave this place and head to the Jinling large base. At this time the great sun rises in the east. 10,000 rays of sunlight pour down. If you look down from a high place, you can see that the sun is pushing in a little bit as it rises, banishing the darkness. Just like the fate of both Li Yue and Li Xuanji. Their future, with it, became brighter and brighter. Just as Chuma was leaving. At this time over the small base of Wanling. An old man who had evaded the air looked down at the base below that had become ruins, and his face immediately revealed a look of anxiety. Bad. In a hurry, I'm still late. The 10,000 Beasts sect couldn't have gotten their hands on it already, could they? A look of chagrin appeared on his face. This person was the old friend of the Li clan's old ancestor, an elder of a major power in the Middle Sea Great Base, and he had immediately moved to come and try to pick him up after receiving the news from the Li clan's old ancestor. It was only halfway through that he was entangled by an upper-class 6 flying bird. He had to delay some time in order to get rid of it. Who knew that by the time he arrived, the small base in Wanling had already become ruins, and the Li family had even been wiped out. Damn the 10,000 Beasts sect. Obviously a human race, yet they willingly fell into servitude to the ferocious beasts, a bunch of traitors. It is imperative that we must find the Li siblings as soon as possible. Also, the 10,000 Beasts sect was purged 20 years ago. I thought it had been honest for quite a while, but I didn't expect it to actually appear again. We must report this matter as soon as possible. Thinking so, he immediately turned around and prepared to return to arrive at the Zhonghai super base. Chu Mo didn't know about what happened at the small base in Wanling. Flying all the way. 5 hours later, he brought the siblings Li Yue and Li Xuanji back inside the Jinling large base without any problems. Tianji Pavilion. Master of the Court. Greetings, Pavilion Master. See Venerable Chu. When Chu Mo showed up here, some of the disciples were first startled when they saw Chu Mo's sudden appearance, and when they saw him clearly, they immediately saluted. A look of respect also appeared in his eyes. These people were able to join the Tianji Pavilion because they were attracted by Chu Mo, and they naturally had great respect for Chu Mo in their hearts. On the other hand, Chu Mo nodded slightly and led the two of them, Li Yue and Li Xuanji, towards the inner body of the pavilion all the way. But seeing that there were already nearly 1,000 disciples from the outer sect as well, and hundreds of disciples from the inner sect, with many martial masters and even sect master martial artists among them. They were either practicing in the pavilion or out on a mission. Everything seems to be in order. It seems that recruiting Wind Chaser in the first place was really an incomparably correct decision. Chu Mo thought secretly, his heart was satisfied. After the establishment of Tianji Pavilion, Chu Mo had handed over many chores to Chasing Wind to handle, and it was naturally due to Chasing Wind that it was running so smoothly now. In the midst of his thoughts, Chu Mo had already brought Li Yue and Li Xuanji to the Pavilion Master's Hall. It so happened that Wind Chaser also got the news and hurried over. Pavilion Master, you're here. Chaser saluted Elder Wind Chaser. Let me introduce to you, this is Li Yue and Li Xuanji, my two newly accepted disciples. Both are still young at the moment, and are temporarily residing in the pavilion. You will classify them both as true transmission sequence, and cleanse their bodies with spiritual herbs and liquids on weekdays. Chummer said. Hear this. Chasing the Wind immediately glanced at the siblings with incomparable surprise. He didn't expect that these two would be able to be seen by Venerable Chu and even accepted as disciples. His heart immediately felt some envy. But it quickly came back and said, yes. Chu Mo instructed the siblings, you'll settle down here first, and if there's anything, you can seek help from Elder Wind Chaser to deal with it. Li Yue was still half a month away from turning 15, while Li Xuanji, because he was currently only 13 years old, his roots and bones were still undefined, and he could not cultivate for the time being. Therefore, the two of them were placed in the Tianji Pavilion first. The two men nodded to themselves. Subsequently, Chu Mo chatted with Wind Chaser for a few more sentences, then waved his hand, And Wind Chaser was very sensible and took Li Yue and Li Xuanji's siblings down. When they left, Chumhum breathed a long sigh of relief. The talent of the sword is already enough, so you can cultivate in peace next. Over this period of time, with the constant daily refining of my body, my physical strength has also grown to 12,000 elephant strength. There is still an extremely far distance from touching the pinnacle of Jin General. So next, the most important thing is to raise the strength of your physical body. The other thing is cultivate the dragon image indestructible scripture. Since obtaining the dragon elephant undying scripture, Chu Mo had already broken the first physical body extreme realm. If he was able to break the flesh body extreme realm a second time, he would be able to obtain a 300-fold increase. This can be a sea change in terms of one's own strength. Make up your mind. Chu Mo then searched for a quiet room and began to cultivate. Within the quiet room, Chu Mo took out the rank 6 ferocious beast blood he had obtained from the charging sword falcon and drank it down in one gulp. Feeling the rampant energy flowing freely through his body, he immediately executed the green cloud yuan power body forging mysterious technique, slowly quenching his fleshly body. With time, his power was rising bit by bit. Half a month later, Li Yue reached the age of 15 and could start cultivating, so Chu Mo came out of seclusion and taught her the green cloud body forging secret art. Her talent is truly amazing because he was already in the natural martial artist realm originally. He had already broken the martial artist limit in less than half a day of practicing the secret art of body forging. Subsequently, Chu Mo watched as the heaven and earth yuan qi within a radius of tens of miles swept in, forming a funnel that poured in towards Li Yue's body. Within a short period of time, her physical strength was soaring, growing rapidly to 400,000 pounds of force with her hands. Chu Mo prided himself on having seen quite a few big scenes. But looking at the scene in front of me, or was shocked, at time actually completely speechless. Master, is there something wrong with my cultivation? Seeing that Chu Mo did not say anything for a long time, Li Yue said with some anxiety in her heart. No, Master was just thinking about something else. Chu Mo waved his hand and then said, now that you have broken the limit of your physical body, the next thing you need to do is to cultivate the secret art of forging the body and step by step to raise your strength to the limit, and then you can break the shackles and step into the realm of a martial master. But martial arts practitioners don't just need strength to cultivate, they also need to cultivate some martial arts skills. In your spare time you can go forward to the martial library and look for some martial arts to learn a thing or two. Li Yue nodded and said obediently, yes, master. The two of them then chatted for a few more moments before Li Yue retreated. Chu Mo, on the other hand, wandered around the pavilion for a while before preparing to continue his closed-door cultivation. Just right about this time. Instead, Wind Chaser suddenly came and reported a message. The Zhonghai Super Base issued a notice saying that disciples of the 10,000 Beasts sect were found to be infested, so that all the major bases should be more cautious within the bases. And if disciples of the 10,000 Beasts sect are found, they need to be reported immediately. In addition, the three great clans of Gu, Zhou, and Shan and the Jade Merchant Alliance have also contacted our Tianji Pavilion, hoping that each of our 5 forces can contribute a batch of manpower to form a joint inspection team that will carry out internal inspections in the Jinling Great Base to guard against the 10,000 Beasts sect's martial practitioners from rebelling. In the middle of the great hall, Wind Chaser said in a deep voice. Words. Chu Mo said, since that's the case, let's send out some manpower. This matter will be left to you to negotiate. Yes. Wind Chaser nodded and then left when he saw that Chu Mo had no other orders. Wait for it to go away. Chumhum sat within the house, thoughts turning over in his head regarding the 10,000 Beasts sect. Chu Mo did not place it in his heart at first. Just by looking at how much importance was attached to them within the Jinling Big Base, and even the Zhonghai Super Base was alarmed, it looked rather scornful. This caused some doubt in Chu Mo's mind. Could it be that this 10,000 Beasts sect still has some inside information that they don't know about? Thinking so, Trummer felt he should inquire. Jinling Big Base, Gu Family. Today, Tianji Pavilion's pavilion master, Venerable Chu Mo Chu, came to visit, making the Gu family nervous, and even the Gu family's oldest ancestor was startled, waking up from his seclusion to personally receive him. In the middle of a quiet room, the two of them, Chu Mo and Gu Tsang, sat opposite each other. How did Venerable Chu have the time to come to Laofu today? Gu Tsang poured a cup of tea for Chu Mo and asked with some curiosity. It's like this, I'm practicing today, and I heard that the Zhonghai Super Base issued a notice saying that there are traces of the 10,000 Beasts sect's martial artists infesting the base, and that the base seems to be very tense. Truthfully, Chu's cultivation time is still short, and he doesn't have much knowledge of the 10,000 Beasts sect, so he came here specifically, and hopes that Venerable Gu Tsang will be able to solve the confusion. Chummer said. So that's what this is about. Upon hearing Chu Mo's words, Gu Tsang came to a sudden realization and then opened his mouth, recounting what he knew. And it was only after hearing this that Chu Mo realized. Why would the Zhonghai Super Base and the Jinling Big Base be so nervous about the 10,000 Beasts sect? It turned out that the 10,000 Beasts sect was created by a group of human traders who, although they were of the human race, had degraded themselves and fallen into the role of ferocious beasts' minions. 50 years ago, the 10,000 Beasts sect first appeared and led a large group of ferocious beasts to attack a super base, almost contributing to it. Fortunately, the human martial artists reacted quickly, and several super bases rushed to reinforce them, eventually crushing the ferocious beasts. Aftermath. The human martial artists launched a siege against the 10,000 Beasts sect, and ultimately, after paying a great price, the 10,000 Beasts sect was completely annihilated. Just unexpectedly, 20 years ago, the 10,000 Beasts sect once again appeared. This time they learned their lesson, specializing in secretly striking out and hunting down the human race's heavenly pride, at one point making quite a few of the human race's geniuses fall. However, it was a good thing that the humans also reacted quickly, and the Zhonghai Super Base sent 2 king-level powerhouses to personally come and suppress it, while intending to cleanse the 10,000 Beasts sect once again. As a result, who would have thought that they would fall into a trap and be surrounded by several king beasts, resulting in 1 death and 1 injury. Fortunately, the follow-up soon had a king-level powerhouse come to reinforce, and finally the people of the 10,000 Beasts sect were rounded up and decapitated, and then cleansed them once again afterward. Because of these 2 previous and subsequent storms, it caused humans to be very wary of the 10,000 Beast sect. Because of this time, the appearance of a martial artist from the 10,000 Beasts sect was what caused the Zhonghai Super Base to take it very seriously. It is the fear of repeating the tragedies of the previous 2 occasions.